Welcome to the Deep Dive, the show that really tries to get to the core of complex research and give you that shortcut to being genuinely well-informed.
And today we are diving into a synthesis that is, well, it's truly unexpected. We're going to draw a direct line from the primal energy of ancient war drums
Right.
and the really strict discipline of spiritual rituals and connect it all the way to, believe it or not, advanced neurophysiology labs in the 21st century.
It sounds like a huge leap. The topic is synchronization, but I think we need to be clear. We're not just talking about, like, coordinating a dance move.
No, not at all.
We are tackling a much deeper question. What is the physical, the measurable, sort of ground-level mechanism that creates true, deep social unity? We're investigating what our sources are calling collective effervescence, that intense shared feeling, and specifically how it's achieved through rhythmic synchronization.
Exactly. We're looking at sources that treat shared rhythm not as just some pleasant cultural thing, but as a powerful physical driver.
For a driver.
A kind of nonverbal technology, if you will, that literally links the psychological and emotional awareness of separate people. It transforms them into a single, cohesive organism, really.
So our mission for this deep dive is to find the scientific bedrock for this. We want to understand how this mechanism, which has been used for thousands of years for military power, for spiritual focus, is now, right now, being validated by measurable physiological responses.
It's a journey from the battlefield to the brain scanner.
I like that.
We're connecting these ancient methods for social cohesion to things we can actually repeat and measure in a lab.
Yeah.
We're trying to move beyond metaphor here and get right into the nuts and bolts, the mechanism of it all.
Okay, let's start there then. Let's unpack this with some specifics. The term collective effervescence gets thrown around a lot in sociology. How do we define it in a way that's scientifically testable?
Right.
And why is rhythm so central to it?
Right. So Dr. Shira Gabriel defines it as a feeling you experience when you encounter something transcendent, but specifically with other people.
Okay, so it's a shared experience.
It has to be shared. It's that moment of, shared awe or ecstasy that just lifts you completely out of your own head, out of your individual experience, and makes you part of a powerful collective.
Like at a concert or a massive protest
or a spiritual rally or even a moment of unified national mourning. Exactly. It's that feeling of we-ness.
And the crucial part for our deep dive is that this feeling, this we-ness, isn't just poetry. It's not just subjective. It actually has a scientific validation.
That's the breakthrough. That's where the work of Dr. Joseph Delvin comes in, which the sources cite.
Right.
His research validates this by showing that these synchronization principles have a real demonstrable ground base in neurophysiology.
Ground base. So it's not just in our heads.
It's in our bodies. The sources even use a specific term for this measurable state: collective effness.
Collective effness. Okay, so let's clarify that for everyone listening. Collective effervescence is the feeling, the experience.
Right. Subjective high.
And collective effness is the repeatable neurophysiological marker, the proof.
The objective proof. Exactly. Proves the phenomenon is real and you can measure it. And that link is what provides this powerful bridge between ancient wisdom used in rituals or on the battlefield and what we can now verify in a lab.
So this moves it from the realm of, say, philosophy into physics.
Absolutely. It tells us that what ancient cultures knew intuitively, that shared rhythm creates shared feeling, is actually biologically hardwired into our systems.
So if it's hardwired, we have to ask, what is the core mechanism? I mean, how does a shared rhythm or a shared action physically link two separate human beings? How does it override their biological individuality?
The key, according to all the source material, lies in synchronizing our most fundamental internal rhythms, specifically the heartbeat.
The heartbeat.
That's the engine of the whole process. The sources are incredibly clear on this. When people engage in shared rhythmic activity, and this could be anything from chanting to marching to just standing in the exact same position.
Even just standing.
Yes, or even just receiving the same sound with the same rhythm and intensity, their heartbeats become synchronized.
That is genuinely profound. I mean, we think of the heartbeat as the ultimate individual measure of life, the clock that's ticking just for you.
Right.
But you're saying under specific conditions, our internal life-sustaining rhythms literally align with the people around us.
It's a form of, well, You could call it biological hijacking for the purpose of unity.
A biological hack.
It's a deliberate and incredibly efficient way to override individual psychological differences. And the heartbeat is so critical because its synchronicity directly reflects the synchronicity of their emotional status.
Hey, okay, let me make sure I'm getting the scale of that claim.
Yeah.
You're saying if our heartbeats are in sync, our internal emotional state, how we feel, is also mirroring the person next to us.
And not just how you feel, but how you perceive the world. Your psychological awareness of presented reality.
Wow. So it's a physiological shortcut to empathy, to a shared experience. You don't have to talk about it, you just feel it together.
Precisely. Your individual biological clock and your emotional regulator are now ticking in time with the collective. And this accumulation of shared presence creates the state that the sources describe as the unison zone.
The unison zone.
Okay.
Let's dive deep into that. What does that feel like? What does life look like inside this zone?
This is where the power of it really becomes clear. Within this highly unified state, this zone, individuals are able to feel, interact, and know each other without speaking.
Without speaking at all.
At all. They rely solely on that shared rhythm and physiological alignment. This is so much more than just teamwork. It's a fundamental harmonization process. It creates something like a collective mind, or at least a collective emotional awareness.
So it effectively bypasses the whole messy, slow process of verbal communication. You don't have to describe how you feel, and you can't really lie about your intentions, can you?
No, because your synchronized heartbeat is your feeling, and it's instantly and non-verbally shared with the group.
I'm thinking of like an emergency room team that just moves as one body, or an elite military unit executing a maneuver in total silence.
That's a perfect illustration. The sources really emphasize that rhythmic motor synchronicity is the primary force here. It's the engine driving these collective emotional states.
The movement, the alignment, the rhythm.
That's what does the heavy lifting of fusing people together.
And just to get into the technical detail of it, because I know our listeners will ask, when we talk about this neurophysiological basis, is it only about heart rate? Or does the research get into other factors like, I don't know, brainwave coherence, mirror neurons?
That's a great question. The heartbeat is presented as the most reliable outcome or indicator that synchronization has been achieved. But the underlying mechanism, yeah, it almost certainly involves multiple systems.
So the heart is the dashboard light, but not the whole engine.
A good way to put it. For instance, mirror neurons are essential for the motor mimicry that starts the whole process. You see someone move, you move. And that shared movement likely leads to increased brainwave coherence, where cognitive rhythms also start to align, which just strengthens the whole unison zone even more.
So this rhythmic alignment is a direct mechanism that bypasses speech. You aren't persuaded into feeling the same way as someone else. You are physically, rhythmically aligned into it. It harmonizes you from the inside out.
It creates a shared reality that's just immediately felt, understood without needing words. And that transforms individual intent into a unified and really an intensified collective feeling. It's so powerful because it operates at a subconscious biological level. The unity it creates is far more resilient than one based on just, intellectual agreement.
This whole mechanism, physical alignment, creating psychological unity, is incredible. But what's even wilder is seeing how this knowledge was deliberately institutionalized, like centuries ago, long before anyone could measure heart rate with a watch.
Exactly. And that brings us to our next section. The modern science is basically validating methodologies that were put into practice about 1,400 years ago by Prophet Muhammad.
For what purpose?
The sources are clear. For the explicit purpose of social and spiritual cohesion through the required ritual alignment of prayer.
Which suggests a really deep insight about the nature of human collective favor. This wasn't something that was just hoped for. Unity was something that had to be structurally enforced.
It was, in effect, a mandatory social engineering technique, but it was framed as ritual discipline. The spiritual leader was acting as a master social engineer, using a physiological pathway to ensure cohesion and loyalty.
So let's get into the specifics of the command, because it's so precise. What was the instruction given to followers about how they should stand during communal prayer?
The sources point to a hadith, which is a saying or action from the prophet, this one narrated by Nu'man ibn Bashir. The command was absolute. Followers were to straighten their rows.
Straighten the rows.
Perfectly, shoulder to shoulder, ankle to ankle, closing any and all gaps between individuals. This wasn't a friendly suggestion. It was a mandatory physical precondition for the ritual to even be valid.
I want to pause on that for a second. We're talking about enforcing perfect physical order among maybe hundreds of people, several times a day, What was I guess, the sociological friction in making people do that?
The friction would have been immense, which is why the instruction had to be repeated constantly over and over.
Right.
I mean, just imagine a diverse group of people, different heights, ages, physical conditions, all trying to create a single mathematically perfect line. That degree of physical conformity is deeply uncomfortable for the individual. You have to suppress your natural impulse for personal space.
But that discomfort is the point, isn't it?
That discomfort is precisely the point. It forces the suppression of individuality in favor of the collective form.
And the warning attached to this instruction. That's what really unlocks the insight here. This wasn't just about making things look nice. It was about existential consequence.
Oh, absolutely. The warning was stark. Failure to straighten the rows would cause God to create discord among their hearts or faces.
Discord among their hearts.
The implication is profound. The failure of visible, external, physical order directly causes invisible, internal, emotional, and spiritual division.
So the deep insight from 1400 years ago was that physical alignment is a necessary, non-negotiable condition for internal, emotional, and spiritual unity. It wasn't a preference. It was a structural requirement for controlling the internal systems of the group.
Yes, it was a recognition that the visible, external state of the group is intrinsically linked to the invisible, internal state. Discord in how you look, disordered ranks, staggered lines, gaps, is seen as a direct cause of difference in the inner self. If you tolerate physical disorder, you are actively inviting emotional disharmony.
This creates a crucial inference, a direct link to what we're now validating with neurophysiology. The alignment of hearts necessitates the alignment and balance of limbs. The body has to be perfectly synchronized for the spirit to be unified.
And the reverse is the warning. If the ranks differ, it indicates or even causes a difference of hearts. The prophet's warning suggested the whole spiritual outcome of the ritual and the cohesion of the community itself depended on that physical synchronization being flawless.
So it was a mandatory synchronization technique.
Exactly. Aimed directly at preventing emotional discord and ensuring a profound unity of intention and goals.
If we look at this through the lens of modern synchronization research, this ancient religious discipline becomes, well, it looks like a highly sophisticated, large-scale social experiment.
That's a great way to put it. They were using this physical synchronization driver to achieve collective effervescence in a ritual context, long before we had the tools to measure something like heartbeat coherence.
They understood at some deep level that standing in the same alignment, doing the same movements, would sync up not just their bodies, but their heartbeats, and therefore their emotional status.
And that was the foundation. That shared psychological connection was necessary for a truly unified community. They were leveraging the biological reality of human synchronization to make sure everyone was literally on the same beat, feeling the same transcendent presence.
Okay, so let's move from the spiritual, which is about a kind of voluntary submission, to the martial, the military. This is often about involuntary survival.
Yeah.
We see the exact same principle, just maybe with louder instruments.
Much noisier instrumentation, yes. Let's talk about the war drum.
Right.
The military use of rhythmic synchronization perfectly mirrors these ritual alignment techniques. It just confirms how universal this mechanism is. The drum was an ancient application for social empowerment and psychological strength.
The war drum.
Yeah.
It was the quintessential instrument for this physical synchronization driver, and its purpose was way more complex than just keeping time for marching, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. The war drum was used explicitly to synchronize the army both before and during battle. It was like an auditory warming up that coordinated the army's heartbeat and emotional status.
So it was a tool for emotional regulation on a mass scale.
Yes, and it drastically increased the sources say their fervor for combat. It was basically a massive collective adrenaline boost achieved with nothing more than a repetitive, powerful rhythm that you could feel in your chest.
And the sources connect this physical rhythm directly to cognitive function. It says the drum coordinates the heartbeat, which then leads to thought coordination and movement in accordance with the beat.
It literally gets everyone thinking, breathing, and moving as one single tactical organism.
This is where the magic happens, isn't it?
It is. The rhythmic beat forces soldiers to move and act in unison. And this shared motor synchronicity creates a profound sense of belonging and collective identity. This is what the sources labeled the we-ness effect.
That we-ness effect. That has to be the psychological core of battlefield strength. What does being in that synchronized state do to an individual soldier who's, facing death?
The practical outcome is existential. By feeling part of this larger, unified force, individuals experience increased courage. Why? because the collective presence disperses the individual threat.
Your personal fear gets smaller because the group feels bigger.
Exactly. They have a significantly reduced individual sense of fear. The synchronized rhythm becomes the biological antidote to existential